The final confirmation glowed on her phone screen, illuminating her triumphant smile in the dim light of my study. Rain tapped gently against the window pane, a soft, mournful rhythm. "See, Grandpa?" Chloe said, her voice sharp and final. "It's done. A wire transfer for $52,750. All the auctions are closed. You can't stop it now." Her words hung in the air, cold and heavy as steel. She held the phone out for me to see, the number stark against the white background. A monument to her victory. A small, dismissive laugh escaped her lips. "All that fuss over some dusty old paper. I told you it was for the best." She slid the phone back into her pocket, the casual gesture a deeper insult than the theft itself. "This is paying for my entire graduate degree, with plenty left over. You should be proud of me, really. I'm being practical." She looked around the room at the shelves of books and albums, as if seeing them for the first time as inventory. The digital receipt on her screen had felt like a death warrant for a part of my soul. Each stamp, each album, a memory of a time or a place, now reduced to a line item. I sat perfectly still in my worn leather armchair. The one Agnes always said looked like a throne for a king of books. Chloe saw my silence as defeat. She mistook my stillness for surrender. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in, suffocating me with the scent of old paper that now smelled only of loss. But as she watched me, waiting for a final broken plea, I did something she did not expect. I smiled. A small, quiet, almost imperceptible smile. My hands, wrinkled and spotted with age, remained folded calmly in my lap. My gaze drifted from her face to the worn leather of my wallet sitting on the desk. Inside, nestled behind a faded picture of my late wife, was a single flimsy piece of paper, the beginning of it all, and the key to its end. I cleared my throat, the sound unnaturally loud in the tense silence. "Chloe," I began, my voice steady, betraying none of the storm inside me. "There's one small, critical detail you've overlooked in your practical solution." I leaned forward, letting the suspense hang between us, watching the confidence in her eyes flicker with the first seed of doubt. But months earlier, it all began on a quiet Tuesday morning, with a simple act of kindness that I would come to regret more than anything. The study was my sanctuary, a lifetime of learning contained in four walls, filled with the comforting, dusty scent of aging books and paper. It's where I graded papers for 40 years as an English professor, and where, in retirement, I curated my life's other great passion, my stamps. Each album was a map of history, a tapestry of geography and art. My routine was simple: coffee at dawn, the newspaper, and then hours with my tweezers and magnifying glass, lost in a world of perforations and watermarks. Chloe started visiting more often that spring. At first, it warmed my old heart. She was my only grandchild, a bright girl with my daughter's eyes. She'd bring groceries, tidy up the kitchen, and ask about my day. "You shouldn't be so alone in this big house, Grandpa," she'd say, her voice thick with manufactured concern. She would sit in the study with me, feigning interest as I showed her my collection, her eyes scanning the shelves, not with curiosity, but with a chilling, appraising glint. One afternoon, to explain how it all began, I pulled my worn leather wallet from my pocket. From a hidden flap, I carefully slid out a small glassine envelope. Inside was a faded, purple 3-cent stamp bearing George Washington the profile. "This was the first one," I told her, my voice soft with memory. "My father gave it to me in 1948. It's not valuable in terms of money, but its worth to me is immeasurable. It was the cornerstone of my entire world." Chloe peered at it, a flicker of disappointment crossing her face. "That old thing?" she asked, her tone dismissive. "It's all faded and kind of grubby. Probably not even worth $1. She waved a hand toward the albums. "The colorful ones with the animals are much cooler." She saw a piece of worthless old paper. She didn't see the love of a father, the spark of a lifelong passion. She didn't see the key. Her dismissal of it was the first true cut. Her visits continued, but now I saw them through a different lens. Her questions became more pointed, less sentimental. How much is this page worth? Have you ever had them appraised? Is there like a master list or something? I'd answer vaguely, attributing her curiosity to youthful pragmatism. I wanted to believe she cared. I showed her a picture of her as a little girl, sitting on my lap, pointing at a vibrant stand from Brazil with a toucan on it. She barely glanced at it. The memory was so vivid it hurt. A 5-year-old Chloe, her face alight with wonder. It's like a tiny window to a jungle, Grandpa. She had squealed with delight back then. I remembered the warmth of her small hand in mine. Now, standing in my study at 22, her hands were busy scrolling through her phone, her face illuminated by its cold blue light. The contrast was a physical ache in my chest, a quiet testament to the person she had become when I wasn't looking. A week later, I was in the hallway when I heard her talking in the kitchen, her voice low and conspiratorial. "No, he has no idea," she was saying to a friend on the phone. "It's a whole room full of them. He thinks I'm here to make him soup." A pause, then a chilling laugh. "Honestly, it's just a box of old stickers. He's 83. What's he going to do with them anyway?" The word stickers struck me like a stone. The casual, utter contempt. My blood ran cold. I retreated back to my study, my hands trembling slightly. Was I misjudging her? Was this just youthful foolishness? I told myself I was being paranoid, an old man seeing shadows where there were none. I tried to push her words from my mind, focusing instead on cataloging a new set from post-war Germany. But the trust, once cracked, could not be repaired. A seed of suspicion had been planted, and it began to grow in the silence of the old house. The trigger event arrived not with a bang, but with a quiet chime from my laptop. It was an email from my friend Arthur, a fellow collector in Oregon. The subject line was just 2 words. "Is this you?" Inside was a link to an eBay auction. I clicked, and my world tilted on its axis. There, under the heading, "Vintage Rare Stamp Lot Estate Find," was my complete British Commonwealth collection. My rarest, most cherished pieces. The pictures were hers. I recognized the chipped mahogany at my desk in the background. The description was a travesty, full of amateur buzzwords and glaring errors. She was selling them for a fraction of their worth, in a single, massive lot, a tactic designed for a quick, untraceable sale. She hadn't just stolen from me. She was butchering my life's work, selling a symphony for the price of scrap metal. The auction had a 48-hour timer. The clock was ticking. When I confronted her, she didn't even have the grace to look ashamed. She was sitting at my kitchen table, scrolling through the auction bids on her tablet. "I was going to tell you," she said, not looking up. "It's for my student loans, Grandpa. It's an investment in my future." Her voice was flat, devoid of emotion, as if she were discussing a stock transaction, not the liquidation of my heart and soul. There was no remorse in her eyes, only cold calculation. "This is theft, Chloe," I said, my voice shaking with a rage I hadn't felt in decades. She finally looked at me, her expression hardening. "Oh, don't be so dramatic. It's just paper. You sit in that dusty room all day and look at it. I'm putting it to good use. It's my inheritance. I'm just taking it a little early." Her justification, so simple and selfish, was more painful than the act itself. She truly believed she was entitled to it. My first call was to my daughter, her mother. I explained the situation, the eBay auction, Chloe's cold confession. I expected shock, anger, immediate action. Instead, I was met with a weary sigh. "Dad, are you sure you're not confused? Chloe said you were getting forgetful. She told me you agreed to help her with school." The lie was so audacious, so complete, it left me speechless. Chloe had preemptively poisoned the well, framing me as incompetent. "She's a good kid, Dad," my own daughter said, her voice full of strained patience. "She's under a lot of pressure. Maybe you two just had a misunderstanding." A misunderstanding. My granddaughter was selling my property, valued at over $50,000, without my consent, and it was a misunderstanding. In that moment, I realized I was truly alone in this. The family I thought would protect me had already chosen a side, and it wasn't mine. That conversation was my first taste of public humiliation, even if it was just within the family. They saw me as the difficult old man, the relic standing in the way of a young girl's bright future. My protests were dismissed as senile ramblings. My claims of theft were reframed as generational squabbles over dusty heirlooms. Chloe had not only stolen my collection, she had stolen my credibility, my voice, and my standing as the family patriarch. I felt a profound sense of despair. The legal system felt daunting, a labyrinth I was too old and tired to navigate. Who would believe an 83-year-old man over his bright, university-bound granddaughter? The ticking clock on the auction page was a constant torment. Less than 36 hours remained. I sat in my study that night, the albums missing from their shelves, leaving gaping holes, like lost teeth in a familiar smile. The room felt violated, empty. Then I found a glimmer of false hope. I remembered a local lawyer, a young man named Peterson, whose father I'd known. I called him, my voice desperate, and explained the situation. He was sympathetic, expressing his disgust at Chloe's actions. "This is clear-cut conversion, Thomas," he said, using the legal term for theft. "We can file for an emergency injunction to halt the sale. I'll draft the paperwork immediately. We just need proof of ownership." Proof of ownership. Of course. For a moment, my spirits soared. I had decades of receipts, appraisal documents from the 90s, detailed catalogs I had written myself. I spent the next several hours frantically searching my roll-top desk, pulling out files and boxes, but they weren't there. My stomach sank. The drawers were subtly disorganized, a clear sign that someone had been through them. She had taken the provenance papers, all of them. She had been methodical. I called Peterson back, the defeat heavy in my voice. She took the appraisals, the receipts, everything. There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Thomas," he said, his professional sympathy now laced with pity. "Without clear documentation establishing your title, an injunction is nearly impossible on such a short timeline. It becomes a he said, she said family dispute. The court won't stop a private sale without hard evidence." The hope he had given me was snatched away. That night, the rain began to fall again. The gentle tapping against the glass, a miserable echo of my own heartbeat. It was the lowest point. I had no proof, no allies, and no time. I sat in the dark, the faint glow of my laptop screen showing the auction bids climbing higher and higher. It was then my hand fell upon my wallet, still on the desk. I thought of Agnes and how she'd always told me to keep things of true value close. My fingers found the familiar shape of the small, glassine envelope. I pulled out the old 3-cent Washington, the paper soft and fragile with age. Chloe's voice echoed in my mind. "That old thing? It's all faded, worthless, an irrelevant sentimental scrap." Staring at it in the dim light, a wave of profound helplessness washed over me. This stamp, the seed of my joy, had become a symbol of my total defeat. It represented a lifetime of passion she had dismissed and destroyed. It was all I had left, a pathetic reminder of what I had lost. I almost put it away, ready to surrender to the inevitable. But then, a memory surfaced, sharp and clear. It was from about 15 years ago. I'd decided to get my most valuable holdings professionally appraised and certified. Not for insurance, but for posterity. A man named Mr. Davies, from the Philatelic Foundation, had come to the house. He was meticulous, spending 2 days examining my rarest items under a special lamp. Agnes had served him tea in her good china. I remembered his final advice. "Thomas," he'd said, his voice serious, "for pieces of this caliber, certification is everything. Each one is photographed, documented, and assigned a unique serial number in our archives. They're no longer just stamps, they're registered artifacts." At the time, I'd seen it as a measure of prestige. Now, his words sparked a different idea, a desperate, audacious flicker of a plan. The auction clock showed 24 hours remaining. Chloe hadn't just stolen paper, she had stolen registered traceable assets. She was fencing fine art, not selling stickers. My first step was to report the theft, not to the local police precinct, where a family dispute would be shuffled to the bottom of the pile, but directly to the FBI's art crime team. Their website had a specific portal for theft of valuable collectibles. I typed with a precision I hadn't felt in years. my old professor's mind finding order in the chaos. Next, I needed the serial numbers. Chloe had taken the physical certificates, but Mr. Davies had been thorough. He had emailed me digital copies of the certification documents for my records all those years ago. I delved into my ancient email archive, a digital catacomb I rarely visited. After an hour of tense searching, I found it. An email from March 12, 2009. The subject, PF Certs, T. Miller Collection. Attached was a PDF. My heart hammered against my ribs. I opened the file. There they were. High-resolution photographs of my 20 most valuable stamps, each with a certificate bearing a watermark and a unique, unforgeable serial number. The inverted Jenny, the penny black, the Graf Zeppelin issue, all accounted for, all traceable. I uploaded the entire PDF to the FBI portal and then sent a copy to eBay's fraud department with a formal notice of stolen goods, citing the specific auction numbers. The trap was being laid, but a federal investigation takes time. I needed something faster. The auction was ending soon. My mind went back to the 3-cent Washington in my wallet. It wasn't one of the certified stamps, but it was the key. Why? Because Mr. Davies had insisted on certifying it as well. Not for its value, but for its story. The cornerstone of a great collection is a piece of history in itself, he had said. He had given it certificate number 0574781 as a gift. This was the detail that would hang her. She had seen the worthless stamp. She had dismissed it. But I had the digital certificate with its unique serial number. It was the one piece of documented evidence she could never have known to steal because she never considered it valuable. It was my Chekhov's gun. It irrefutably linked me to the collection, proving I was the owner who sought out professional certification for my property, even for items of purely sentimental value. Armed with this, I renewed my plan. I bypassed the local police and went straight to the county district attorney's office, requesting a fraud investigator. I didn't present myself as a confused old man. I walked in with a printed copy of the certificate for the free send stamp, the email from Mr. Davies, and the active eBay listings. I was calm, organized, and precise. My granddaughter is currently trafficking over $50,000 in stolen, registered assets, I stated. The investigator, a sharp woman named Detective Morales, listened intently. She saw the evidence, not the family drama. The serial number was the linchpin. It was concrete. So you're telling me she stole a whole collection? Morales summarized. But she left behind this one worthless-looking stamp, which just happens to be the one piece of evidence that proves the whole collection is yours and that it's been professionally cataloged. Precisely, I said. A slow smile spread across her face. The next 12 hours were a blur of coordinated action. Detective Morales contacted eBay's legal department, who, upon seeing a formal criminal inquiry with a specific serial number, immediately froze the auctions and the pending wire transfer. The winning bidders were notified that the items were subject to a law enforcement investigation. Chloe's quick payday had just evaporated into a cloud of legal jeopardy. She didn't know it yet, but her world was about to collapse. As the final auction hour approached, Chloe was blissfully unaware, likely celebrating her imminent wealth. I pictured her planning, dreaming of the life she had stolen for herself. That image fueled the cold fire in my veins. There was no longer anger, only a chilling sense of purpose. I was not just reclaiming my property. I was delivering a lesson in consequences, one that had been tragically omitted from her expensive education. The final insult came in the form of a text message just minutes before the auctions were scheduled to close. It was a picture of a champagne flute held aloft against the city skyline. The caption read, "To the future. Thanks for the seed money, Grandpa. Don't spend my inheritance all in one place." The arrogance, the sheer unadulterated contempt, it was breathtaking. She was toasting her crime with me, the victim. She had no idea the trap was already sprung. I didn't reply. I simply saved a screenshot. It would be another piece of evidence for Detective Morales, a perfect exhibit of her intent and her utter lack of remorse. My quiet, dusty study, once the scene of my humiliation, had become my war room. Every book on the shelf seemed to stand a little straighter, a silent army at my back. The musty smell of old paper no longer smelled of loss. It smelled of history, of permanence, of the silent, enduring power of the written record. My phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Mr. Miller? This is Agent Coulson with the FBI Art Prime team." His voice was brisk, professional. "We've cross-referenced the serial numbers from your report with eBay's records. We have a positive match on all 20 certified items. We're coordinating with local authorities. A warrant is being issued." It was happening. The gears of justice, so impossibly large and distant, were now turning in my favor. The plan vector was no longer just about recovery. It was about accountability. Detective Morales explained the next step. They would secure a court order to seize her laptop and phone, as they contained the transaction records, the primary evidence of the crime. They would also recover the albums themselves, which she had packaged up for shipping. The public stage for her restoration of my dignity would be the very place she had shamed me. Chloe arrived back at the house a little after 3 p.m. that Thursday, flushed with imagined success. She walked into my study, a place she now clearly saw as her personal bank vault, ready to deliver the final word on my defeat. The rain had started again, tapping on the window pane, just as it had when she first showed me the wire transfer that now would never come. History was rhyming, but the poem was about to end very differently. "Well, it's all done," she announced, her voice dripping with condescending finality. "The money should be cleared by morning. Time to start packing up the rest of this junk." She gestured vaguely at my bookshelves, her eyes already calculating the value of my first editions. She was so lost in her greed that she didn't notice the second person in the room, standing quietly in the shadows by the door. She didn't see Detective Morales. I remained silent, letting her walk deeper into the room, deeper into the trap. I wanted to see her face when the illusion shattered. I wanted her to feel the ground crumble beneath her feet. This wasn't just about stamps anymore. It was about the casual cruelty of youth, the arrogant assumption that the old and the quiet are also weak and stupid. It was a lesson my late wife, Agnes, always preached. The loudest person in the room is often the least powerful. Detective Morales stepped forward, holding up her badge. "Chloe Miller? I'm Detective Morales with the County Cyber Fraud Unit. I have a warrant here to seize your electronic devices and any stolen property related to an ongoing investigation." Chloe's face went through a rapid series of emotions: confusion, annoyance, and then, as she looked from the badge to my calm expression, the first sickening dawn of comprehension. Her triumphant smile curdled. "What? This is ridiculous. It's a misunderstanding," she stammered, falling back on her old lie. "It's a family matter. My grandpa is confused. He gave me those stamps." Her voice was a little too high, a little too shrill. The practiced confidence was gone, replaced by the panicked bleating of someone caught in a lie. She looked at me, her eyes pleading for me to play my assigned role of the senile old fool. I said nothing. I simply reached for my wallet on the desk, the same one she had seen countless times. Slowly, deliberately, I took out the small glassine envelope. I slid the 3-cent Washington out and placed it on the polished wood of the desk. Its faded purple, a stark contrast to the dark grain. Then beside it, I placed the printed copy of its certificate, the bold serial number 0574781, facing up. The key turned in the lock. Morales gestured to the stamp and the certificate. "We know all about the certified collection, Miss Miller. The one you told your friends was just a box of old stickers. We have the serial numbers. We have your text messages. We have the frozen eBay accounts. Selling registered stolen assets across state lines isn't a family matter. It's a federal crime." Every word was a hammer blow, dismantling Chloe's world brick by brick. The color drained from Chloe's face. Her eyes darted from the worthless stamp to the damning certificate and finally to me. In that moment, she understood. She saw the depth of her miscalculation. She had seen an old man, but she had failed to see the meticulous professor. She had seen dusty paper, but failed to see a documented history. She had dismissed the sentimental, and in doing so, had overlooked the surgical instrument of her own downfall. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. The arrogance, the justifications, the casual cruelty, all of it was gone, replaced by pure, unadulterated shock. The quiet, dusty study had become a courtroom, and she was the one in the dock. The gentle tapping of the rain against the window was the only sound, a somber gabble falling on her future. I looked at her, my granddaughter, and felt nothing but a vast, empty calm. The reversal was complete. Detective Morales produced a document from her folder. It was the court order, crisp and official. "I'll need your phone and your laptop now," she said, her voice leaving no room for argument. Chloe stared at the paper as if it were written in a foreign language. The legal jargon, the official seals, it was a world away from her simple, selfish logic of, "I need it, so I'll take it." The real world, with its rules and consequences, had finally caught up with her. Numbly, she retrieved her laptop from her designer backpack. She handed it over, along with the phone that held the photo of her triumphant champagne toast. Her hands trembled. All her confidence, her casual power over me, had been built on a foundation of lies and a single fatal assumption that I was irrelevant. Now stripped of her digital tools and her false narrative, she looked small and terribly young. She was just a girl who had made a catastrophic mistake. Two uniformed officers entered the study then, their presence filling the space with an undeniable authority. They moved with quiet efficiency, Morales directing them to the boxes by the door, the carefully packaged albums ready for shipping. My life's work, about to be scattered to the winds, was now evidence. They sealed each box with official tape. The sight was both sickening and deeply satisfying. My collection was safe, secured by the very system she thought I was too old to use. Chloe finally found her voice, a pathetic, broken whisper. "Grandpa, please, tell them to stop. It was a mistake. I'll give it all back." It was the plea I had expected earlier, the one I had braced myself for. But hearing it now, it held no power. It was the desperate gambit of a cornered animal, not the sincere remorse of a penitent heart. She wasn't sorry for the theft. She was sorry she got caught. The distinction was everything. I looked at her, my expression unreadable. I thought of Agnes and how she valued integrity above all else. "Actions have consequences, Chloe," I said, my voice quiet but firm. It was the same tone I had used for decades on students who thought they could plagiarize their way to a degree. "This is a lesson you were never taught in university. Consider this your final exam." I offered no comfort, no absolution, only the cold, hard truth of her situation. Her face crumbled. The tears that came were not for my betrayal, but for herself. For her lost money, her tarnished future, the legal storm that was about to break over her head. Detective Morales read her rights, the familiar words sounding alien and brutal in the quiet of my study. The room that had only ever known the rustle of pages and quiet contemplation. My sanctuary had become her place of reckoning. The public humiliation was now hers to bear. As they escorted her out, my daughter arrived. She must have been called by a panicked Chloe. She burst in, her face a mask of frantic disbelief. "Dad, what is going on?" "The police are here. Chloe said you had her arrested." She looked at me, her eyes searching for the confused old man she had dismissed on the phone. Instead, she found a man in complete control, the patriarch she had forgotten I could be. The power dynamic had irrevocably shifted. "Chloe committed a serious crime," I said calmly. "I simply reported it. The rest is up to the legal system." My daughter stared at me. Then, at the evidence receipt Detective Morales handed her. The reality of the situation began to sink in. The serial numbers, the federal involvement. She saw that this was not a simple family squabble. It was a felony. Her carefully constructed narrative of my senility had been demolished by cold, hard fact. She began to plead, to bargain. "Dad, we can fix this. Don't do this to her. She's your granddaughter. You'll ruin her life." Her words, meant to guilt me, had the opposite effect. They solidified my resolve. Her life was not my responsibility to protect when she decided to steal from me, I replied, my voice devoid of warmth. She made her choices. Now, I have made mine. The betrayal from my own daughter had cut deep, and the wound would not be easily healed. Detective Morales gave me a nod as she left, a look of professional respect. The collection will be held as evidence for now, Mr. Miller, but we'll get it back to you. You did the right thing. The house fell silent after they were all gone. The rain had stopped. The only sound was the faint ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall, a sound that had measured my life for 60 years. It was a sound of order, of continuity, of things being set right. I sat back down in my leather armchair. The room was the same, but it felt different. The empty spaces on the shelves no longer felt like a violation. They felt like a temporary absence, a promise of return. The air, heavy with the scent of old paper and rain-washed air, felt clean. The weight of the past few days, the helplessness and the rage, had lifted. In its place was a quiet, profound sense of peace. Justice was not just an abstract concept. It was a tangible thing. Weeks turned into a month. The legal process ground on. Chloe, facing serious charges, had accepted a plea bargain. It involved restitution, a felony conviction that would follow her for life, and a lengthy period of probation. Her bright future, financed by theft, was irrevocably altered. My daughter called occasionally, her conversations strained and awkward, circling the subject, but never landing on a true apology. I kept the calls brief. One crisp autumn morning, a large official van pulled into my driveway. Two officers, the same ones who had taken my collection, carefully carried the evidence boxes back into my study. They opened the seals in front of me. I looked inside. Every album was there, untouched, preserved. My history, my passion, my legacy. It was all back where it belonged. The officers left, and I was alone once more with my life's work. I spent the rest of the day in a state of quiet reverence, returning each album to its rightful place on the shelf. The gaps were filled. The symphony was whole again. I ran my fingers over the embossed leather spines, the familiar texture of comfort. The room felt complete, my sanctuary restored. The ordeal had left a scar, but it had not broken me. It had, in a strange way, reminded me of who I was. Not just an old man, but a scholar, a curator, a guardian of stories. My hand went to my wallet, still on the desk. I took out the 3-cent Washington. It looked different now. It was no longer just a symbol of the past, or a memento of loss. It was a testament to the fact that things of true value are often overlooked. It was a symbol of quiet strength, of hidden power. It had been the first stamp, the catalyst for a lifetime of joy, and in the end, it had been the instrument of its own salvation. A letter arrived a few days later. The handwriting was Chloe's. I hesitated before opening it, bracing myself for another volley of excuses or accusations. But the page inside contained only a few short sentences. "Grandpa," it began. "I am sorry. I was wrong. I see that now." There was no justification, no attempt to minimize her actions. It wasn't absolution, and it didn't erase the betrayal, but it was a beginning. Perhaps her final exam had taught her something, after all. I folded the letter and placed it inside an old book of poetry by Frost. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. The consequences were her own to manage. My part in her education was over. My focus was on my own quiet life, a life I had reclaimed from the brink. I had faced the ultimate family betrayal, and had not only survived, but prevailed, using the very tools they had dismissed as worthless. That evening, I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened the first album, the one my father had given me, and turned to the first page. There was an empty space waiting for the 3-cent Washington. For decades, I had kept it in my wallet, a personal talisman. Now, it felt right to return it home. I carefully used my tweezers to place the stamp into its designated square, its faded purple a quiet anchor on the page. It was no longer just the first stamp. It was the stamp that had saved all the others. A humble piece of paper that held more power than a digital bank account, more weight than a lie. It represented a truth that Chloe, in her rush for the future, had forgotten. The past is not dead. It is not even past. It has roots and records and a quiet, unyielding strength of its own. With the cornerstone of my collection back in place, I felt a sense of finality. The scales were balanced. The story was complete. I closed the heavy album, the soft thud echoing in the silence of the study. Then I stood up from my desk, walked over to the door of my restored sanctuary, and switched off the light.